Yikes. As we speak, Donald Trump is conducting another disastrous Oval Office meeting with a foreign leader that makes the one that he had with Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine look like a cakewalk in comparison. As we speak, Trump is ranting and raving and hurling absurd accusations at the president of South Africa and also losing his shit on reporters who are asking perfectly reasonable questions. Trump is unraveling in real time. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to look at, but I want to start with this one, okay? During a brief lull in the meeting, an NBC reporter dares to ask Donald Trump a perfectly reasonable question about the $400 million luxury jet that he is set to receive from Qatar.
Okay.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know, you to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you know, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing. They also gave $5.1 trillion worth of investment in addition to the jet. Go back, you ought to go back to your studio at NBC because Brian Roberts and the people that run that place, they ought to be investigated. They are so terrible the way you run that network, and you're a disgrace. No more questions from you. Go ahead. Go ahead, talk about that. His name is Peter something. He's a terrible reporter. Quiet. Let's go.
Thank you so much, President Trump.
Yeah, holy shit. I mean, losing his temper, personal insults, telling him he should get out of the White House, that he and his network should be investigated, a totally unhinged response to a perfectly reasonable question. That $400 million luxury jet, as you know, because we've talked about it, has earned criticism from even far-right conservatives like Laura Loomer, you know, Donald Trump's favorite MAGA influencer, publicly excoriated him and the administration for accepting this gift. Others have taken a more principled stance and said it's just violative of the Constitution and the Emoluments Clause. I mean, you have Fox News lawyers, you have elements of the Free Press, that center-right Barry Weiss outlet. I mean, Trump is catching shit from this, rightly so, from pretty much everybody because it seems like a corrupt violation of the Constitution. Before we play some other clips, and by the way, note the plane thing, because the South African president has a funny comment about planes that I'll show you here in just a minute. But so not only is that a perfectly reasonable question, but you should also note that credible reporting indicates that Trump is taking credit for many deals that were made in the Middle East under President Biden. Okay, classic Trump coming in and trying to take credit for shit that he had nothing to do with. And also there have been deep dives into, you know, because he'll say $5 trillion. It's bullshit. It's total bullshit. There is nothing to substantiate the claim that the Middle East and Qatar in particular is going to contribute $5 trillion to the United States. And even if that claim was true at face value, which it is not, there's no reason to believe that they will follow through with it. There's no reason, because this is typically what happens when people make promises to make domestic investments into the United States, and they very rarely follow through. As a matter of fact, that happened repeatedly on Trump's watch. So he has nothing to substantiate the claim, and he's trying to deflect from the obvious corruption of this Qatar $400 million luxury jet. So there's that, Trump lashing out at reporters. He also lashes out at reporters and the South African president.
Disaster from ENCA in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I don't know.
But you know that
To pick anyone, white South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I mean, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couples say that they were attacked violently. And,
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it is indeed true?
well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried. And he asks about a jet that was given. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know, you are so bad. You're such a bad reporter.
President, Mr. President,
This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Can we get a report from President Trump?
What's your reaction to those videos, Mr. President?
President Trump,
Well, I think the videos are so. No. When you.
So there again, he's lashing out at NBC's Peter Alexander. And by the way, we'll get into this. The whole predicate for this is this notion of a white genocide in South Africa. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. Now, if Trump has evidence that white people have been killed in South Africa, that's tragic, but that's not a genocide, right? You actually, these are, it would almost like be saying that, genocide is conducted here in the United States because people of all sorts of ethnicities are killed in the United States every day. Murder is not necessarily genocide. And again, we'll get into that. But so Trump is, attacking the president of South Africa and also, again, attacking Peter Alexander of NBC News. Here's another clip.
We need an Air Force One until that's Air Force One. It's being built. 2 of them being built. But Boeing's a little bit late, unfortunately. So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force? That's what that idiot talks about after viewing a thing where thousands of people are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay.
So,
but coming back to this issue.
So again, that's a pretty funny comment from like, hey, I wish I could bribe you, or hey, I wish I would shut you up with a plane. And Trump is like, yeah, I wish you would. I would accept it. Trump himself won't let the plane go, right? So people had moved on from it, but he constantly steps on his own foot. He's still so upset that people are exposing him and calling him out for his corrupt, $400 million luxury jet. But we'll continue with this clip.
Which I really would.
To the point that even the president from South Africa is making fun of him in this very fraught, very tense meeting.
Like us to talk about, and talk about it very calmly. We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about them.
Well, there are problems.
And this is precisely what we would also like to talk about, including, of course, trade matters, investment matters. So the issues that concern.
So he's trying to be diplomatic with Trump. Again, we will get to a recap of what's going on, the evidence that strongly opposes the notion that there is a white genocide in South Africa. But again, you got to see more of Trump lashing out at the president of South Africa to fully appreciate the situation.
We've never really gotten underway with that, and we are going to be doing so.
You're taking people's land away.
We have not.
From them. And those people, in many cases, are being executed. They're being executed. And they happen to be white, and most of them happen to be farmers. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough situation. I don't know how you explain that. How do you explain that? They're taking people's land away, and in many cases, those people are being executed. And in many cases, it's not the government that's doing it. It's people that kill them and then take their land, and nothing happens to them. But we have thousands of people that want to come into our country. They're also going to Australia in a smaller number. Mm-hmm. But we have thousands of people that want to come into our country, and they're white farmers, and they feel that they're going to die in South Africa, and it's a bad thing. Yeah, please.
All right. A couple more clips. Do one more here. And he just goes right back to attacking NBC News and Peter Alexander.
Talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here, but I will say this, that if the news wasn't fake, like NBC, which is fake news, totally, one of the worst, ABC, NBC, CBS, horrible. But if they weren't fake news like this jerk that we have here, if we had real reporters, they'd be covering it. But the fake news in this country doesn't talk about that.
So again, he's still lashing out at reporters over this. Okay, so let's look at it courtesy of Axios, all right? How false white genocide claims became central to Trump's view of South Africa, okay? During a visit by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Trump had video shown in the Oval Office purporting to show evidence of violence against white people in the country. The visit comes after Trump cut all foreign assistance to the country and parroted false allegations that white South Africans are being subjected to genocide while granting them refugee status in the U.S. Elon Musk, who was born in South Africa and has criticized its government, will attend the talks. Ramaphosa's office said in a press release that the visit is, quote, to discuss bilateral, regional, and global issues of interest and to promote a platform, quote, to reset the strategic relationship between the two countries. The announcement came the same week the Trump administration accepted white Afrikaner refugees, with the U.S. president claiming, quote, they're being killed in, quote, a genocide. The White House also reportedly ordered federal agents to halt work on the G20 conference to be hosted by South Africa later this year. State of play. Although Trump has closed the door to asylum seekers from elsewhere, he's opened it up for white South Africans affected by the country's controversial new land reform law to counter the lingering effects of apartheid. South Africa's Expropriation Act allows the government to take some land and redistribute as part of a long-running effort to lessen the racial and economic disparities created by apartheid. Under apartheid, which ended in 1994, South Africa's white minority government prevented black citizens from owning land or enjoying basic rights for nearly a half-century. 3 decades later, South Africa's president and many other leaders are black. However, white people make up 7.3% of South Africa's population and own 72% of the farmland, a disparity that continues to ripple through the economy. Zoom in. Trump has falsely accused South Africa of unfairly seizing Afrikaners' agricultural property and allowing attacks against white farmers. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has repeated Trump's claims on social media. He refused to attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg, claiming, quote, South Africa is doing very bad things, expropriating private property. South African-born Elon Musk, a top Trump advisor, has peddled conspiracy theories that his native country is, quote, pushing for the genocide of white people. Grok, the AI chatbot incorporated into Musk's X, recently responded unprompted to users with misleading claims about the alleged white genocide in South Africa. Context. The belief in a white genocide is closely linked to a once fringe idea called white replacement theory, which imagines a plot to change nations' racial composition by enacting policies that reduces whites' political power. Reality check. There's no evidence that white farmers are experiencing a spike in violence despite a few high-profile cases, which goes back to what I'm saying. I'm sure that there are white people who have been murdered in South Africa, and that is wrong. It should be punished and investigated and punished, but murder is not genocide, okay? These are two. Genocide involves murder, but not every murder is evidence of genocide. Again, people of every ethnic background are murdered here in the United States every day, but that's not evidence that there is an Indian genocide, for example, in the United States. It's not evidence that there's a Chinese genocide in the United States or an Asian American genocide in the United States simply because Asian Americans are murdered every day in the United States, right? You understand? Trump is conflating these two things either out of stupidity or deliberate, dishonesty. So the Democratic Alliance, South Africa's most popular white-led political party, is made up of multi-ethnic voters and is challenging the land law. A South African court dismissed claims of a white genocide as clearly imagined and not real. Paul S. Landau, a University of Maryland historian and South African expert, told Axios that allegations that whites in South Africa are under attack and of Trump's offer to resettle white South Africans are based on racism and debunk conspiracy theories. Black women farmers, he said, are the ones facing land loss. So there you have it. You might not like the Expropriation Act that South Africa is doing, where they are also compensating the people whose land they are taking, kind of like eminent domain here in the United States. The federal government, under certain circumstances, come in and seize land. They just usually have to compensate you accordingly. This is comparable to that. You can oppose that. You can think it's reverse racism or whatever you want, but it is not genocide. Okay. And there are challenges internally to that law in South Africa as we speak. But once again, this is just Trump taking a far-right conspiracy theory and using it to pummel foreign leaders. And again, kudos to the South African president who also mocked Trump to his face about the plane there. And instead, in the midst of all this unhinged reaction from Donald Trump, he's also lashing out at reporters for asking perfectly reasonable questions. This man is not well, and we will continue to see him unravel in real time. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.